Welcome, cadets. Today we've got Jane's GitGud EU tournament. I've got Commander X, and I hold shift to help break down this game between License to Tilt and E7. It's gonna be a fun one. I'm your host, Green Havoc, or you can call me 76. First off, analysts, casters, how are we doing?
I don't know how to respond to you right now. That's all I'm gonna say.
Feels uncomfortable making small talk with Soldier 76.
Right?
I'm not approachable?
Yes, very, very much yes.
You take one grenade in a back alley and suddenly no one wants to talk to you.
See, the thing is, like, I'm not sure if you're quite Soldier 76. I'm getting, like, major Clint Eastwood vibes from you. Like, at the same point, which I guess they kind of go hand in hand, so there's that. But
I can't really do Eastwood, as this is a broadcast for everyone. Anyway, we've got two plat teams trying to get good, as the tournament suggests. So, Commander X, when it comes to License to Tilt, what are some of the things that are important that they keep in mind in this game to stay organized on the battlefield?
So I think when you're talking about the plat level, you're not going to see the same kind of like cohesion or the small little intricacies and nuances you'll get at Overwatch League or Contenders level. So I think, again, it's all going to be about the basics and executing the fundamentals well. Especially in the current meta, if you can get good value out of your combos, you can use them in conjunction and time them well, I think you can get loads and loads of miles of value out of that. And I think if they can do that, they'll be in a pretty good spot in this match.
Makes sense. Pay attention in boot camp, use the fundamentals, get the job done. I hold shift. When it comes to E7, is it a similar story, or do you have a different opinion of what they should do?
it's going to be pretty similar across the board for all these players. My biggest thing is not going to come down necessarily to who's mechanically better, but which teams have the most synergy off the bat, I think is when it comes down to it. If they can communicate well and actually listen to each other, not just go for heroic plays, it's going to feel a lot like my ranked games where you're just kind of getting the lasso going. And I don't know if this is a reference that you'll understand, 76, but kind of corral everyone together and just make sure you're all doing the same thing. Typically, you'll see that the team synergy will usually win over stronger mechanics at the level.
That's a good point, but you're right. Corralling's more of Jesse's thing. I look forward to seeing what these teams do in this tournament, as we do see a little off-meta picks due to the fact that you're right. We're not in Diamond Masters or Grandmasters. These players are still developing their skills. So I look forward to seeing how they adapt during the game. Hopefully we have a halftime so we can break down what we've seen. But totally randomly speculating, Commander, who do you think is going to win this game?
I mean, our fellow caster, John Allen, is playing for License to Tilt, so I'm going to have to side with E7 massively, overwhelmingly. I think John Allen is going to be the anchor that License to Tilt don't need. And on that basis, it has to be E7 taking a comfortable victory.
What about you, I hold shift?
Yeah, I mean, Commander X broke it down perfectly. I'm going to have to go with E7 as well, just to give a little bit of spite to our boy John, just because he's got to rise above that adversity. You know what I mean? We can't just give him all the things. He's got to earn it.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. So we are getting close to getting into this game. Do we know which map is going to be first, Commander?
They're idling Lijiang Tower right now, so I think that's where we will start. And lots of we receive high level tournaments. It starts on control as well, and it's normally a good barometer for which team has the sort of raw power and mechanical edge. So it'll be an interesting way to start it and just see which way Nat's leaning as we go into the rest of this best of 5 series.
Well, perfect. That's what I like to hear. We're going to stay organized. We're going to start with a brawl and move on from there. Get some cards, get some points. That's the objective. We need to play it. However, it seems like we're in red alert, which means it's time for me to duck on out of here and let the casters do their job. I'm going to pass it on over to you guys as we get into this game. Good luck, and cadets, learn some Overwatch.
Oh my goodness. Green Havoc is a special kind of creature, and you gotta love him. You just gotta love him. It's the whole environment. I don't know. I'm interested on a partial level because like his setup is so over the top. I love it. I'm actually just like picturing like the rest of his house like behind him. Like I'm expecting him to have like Symmetra toilet paper and like a Torbjorn towel. I'm just expecting the whole house to be like a giant Blizzard World merchandise store.
It's just like one of the rides on Blizzard World, just a complete
exactly
shrine to everything. So yeah, I was not expecting a red light switch as well. That one caught me out of left field. I don't know about you, but I don't have any lighting fixtures ready to switch. I don't know if
me neither. Sorry, we can't bring the same kind of immersion like Green Havoc does.
He used all our budget up, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, we had a budget of $10 and he spent them on red lighting. Thanks, Green Havoc. Appreciate that. But no, for real, as we get into this, Commander X, we talked a lot about. I mean, this is around my elo. I'm sitting around high plat, low diamond, so this is going to be very relatable for maybe non so much nostalgic ways when it comes down to my last season of ranked. But when you do look at some of these things, where are your deciding things? Is it going to be frontliners that set things up? You want to see damage dealers carry, or is it going to be mostly on keeping supports alive? What are kind of the elements to these games that you're looking at as far as your keys to success potentially?
I think in general, just sticking together. I don't think in the same, again, to say, compared to say Overwatch League, where you've seen teams often dividing into two and going two like different ways and trying to take two fights and take areas at the same time. I think grouping together, staying together, being hard to beat will take you a long way at this elo. And I think the team that does that, especially with the competitions available, like the triple tank, triple support competitions we see, teams lean on that. I think that plays very strongly into less highly mechanically gifted players.
And with Lijiang Tower coming up, of course, this map kind of fuels that desire as a player to play that 3-3 composition. And I'm interested because, these teams are not as familiar with each other as even our Overwatch Open teams that we saw near the end of the season, or even for that matter, the Not For Normies tournament that we had just last week. So it could have come down to, do you wrangle everybody in and say, hey, we're playing 3-3, or is it going to be like, you know what? No, I'm going to be playing X hero. Like, I'm interested to see how these compositions go. It's gonna be a really fun one, I think, just to kind of watch and see what people are able to offer. Mostly, I want to see what John Allen decides to pull out. He's gonna be under our scrutinous magnifying glass all day today.
Every play going to be micro-analyzed, broken down, looked at from 3 different angles, and in general, just any sense of self-confidence he had coming into this game, hopefully we'll be able to destroy all of it come the end, as we do kick it off on Night Market.
And it will be 3-3 for the team in red of E7, and then License to Tilt will be pulling out a little bit of a flank style with the Sombra Doomfist straight on the point. They go first and foremost. John Allen will start things off with a rocket punch and then a seismic slam immediately after. He's in the backline and actually causing a good deal of havoc. But in the meantime, the rest of his frontliners are falling low, so they will back up. A trade comes out, DMEC for Lucio, which typically will favor the side of E7, and it will as they find a couple more picks. It is a 6-on-4, and that will favor E7 as they will get the first point control thoroughly.
You saw both teams leading out for Reinhardt and Zari, but the key difference, having that triple tank, triple support coming out from the side of E7 makes their front line so much stronger. So even though John Allen on that Doomfist has a lot of disruption, but Sombra very powerful as well, they just lose that frontline battle straight away, and they took it really fast on the point, whereas really, I think License to Tilt needs to take a slower approach, farm up some more ultimates, and they are actually close to the EMP and the Meteor Strike not far behind, so they do have an opportunity here for the repush, but it's how easily they can get in and engage on the E7 side.
Look at this late switch here, though. Commander X going to a pharmacy very late in this game. 31% already done. The Coalescence and the Earthshatter already ready for E7, but they're going to have to find a way to respond to this. And, well, it will be the Pharah jumping in very early. The Earthshatter comes out, but it doesn't actually find anything. So go ahead and tilt this fight maybe in favor of License to Tilt. And the backline Earthshatter will actually hit the Coalescence before it can come out. Now, finally, it will come through late as the boosted Mentos will continue to slap on through. And he'll actually find himself a DMAC +1 kill. And the EMP mid-fight will help that out even more. And Mentos will be up in the kill feed 4 times now, finding himself a lot of success. But, of course, pay the assists over the way of Pharah, who was up there for free, dealing a load of damage.
Tale of 2 Earthshatters. First Earthshatter comes out from IMRZ, gets blocked straight away. Mentos, on the other hand, doesn't find any kills, but knocks down the backline, forces E7 just to fall back, group up a little bit, and that allows John Allen on the Pharah to get loads of damage done. You saw him go from 0 to 100 in this fight, and now he's got the barrage as E7 try and replay.
And Mentos, after having all of that damage dealt, has another Earth Shatter. The Graviton Surge will try to be pulled out with the Barrage. They're not going to find the combination they wanted, but they are able to pull a little bit of distraction into that backline, finding the Zarya and the Brigitte. The self-destruct being thrown out into the courtyard. We'll take down the Ana, which will be a substantial pick, as that is a lot of the healing that they were looking for License to Tilt. Another missed Earth Shatter, though. It will actually take Sombra down to the ground for a small moment, but it just did not do as much as I think they wanted to, although I say that, and Mentos never actually pulled the trigger onto his Earth Shatter, even though they looked like they had the numbers throughout most of that fight.
Yeah, they opted to play that one really passively. They didn't get the initial value out of a barrage, but they still got 2 kills overall, but then didn't really commit towards the fight. And then once the remaining players from that GOAT setup got onto the point, they become really hard to beat. And they just, License to Tilt probably could have committed hardest in that fight, but instead they're going to wait for another re-engage, start poking them down with this Pharah, and they've got that Sombra in the backline as well, looking for that hand.
And it will be that far coming in. Now finally the Earth Shatter comes down. They need to take down IamRez if they can. It would be big, but the Graviton Surge will help negate that, and IamRez will find a Fire Strike to take down 2. That plus the Diva kill will be enough likely to put this one away, as they're just having to clean up the Mercy with this Zarya, who is full charge. And again, look at IamRez. His shield is actually in the back corner. He's not really negating much damage. Now finally moving forward, he needs to be slapping through, though. He's not dealing any damage. Swing that hammer, my man. Get it going. He falls, though, and now the Graviton Surge comes out for Delati, and the side of License to Tilt will actually start to tilt this game back in their favor, as they will retake.
Great play from Delati there, just keeping that fight going, getting the nano boost, doing a good job to keep Basti's Mercy alive as well. They stall that one out. Good switch from Mentos to get onto the hammer to get back to the point. They were able to stall that one out after a sort of messy ultimate exchange where both teams found kills. They do use a lot to retake that point, which is their main problem, is now they're significantly behind an ult advantage. So you have to feel that License to Tilt are going to have to play this one slow and try and farm up ultimates as quickly as possible, but it might just be a quick engage here.
And if you're John Allen, you need to find a pick, preferably onto a backliner. Mentos will find Zero, though, as he throws out the self-destruct. It will miss the barrage coming for the backline. We'll find both supports, so call it, and it will appear. That was exactly what they needed. They have substantial numbers, even though they did lose Mentos. The Lottie's the next one to look up as far as making sure he can get in. And look at this. The Pharah is just floating indoors like a fly on the wall and dealing immense amount of damage. They'll clean this one up and keep this in their potential capture.
You killed it. Needs a support kill, finds both of them, takes them out of a fight. Then even though they do make that quick transition towards point, doesn't matter if you're on point if you've got no supports to keep you alive. So now they force it towards the last fight. They nearly have the EMP, but you've got to be looking at Dogstein with this grab. If he can find value, this will be a great opportunity for them to take it back.
But using the Graviton first and foremost as the Lottie, will find a sound barrier in response. 98% on the point, so overtime will come through. IamRez falling very low, but Mentos actually falls first, so the Reinhardt battle will start to favor the team in red. The barrage comes out, but the EMP will stop most of all of that action coming out. JNT will pop it before he falls, but the numbers, they're still favoring the team in red. But as I say that, John Allen says not so fast. He'll take down Ziri. He needs to find these last couple of kills, but this is a tough task as there's so much healing. Mentos switching back to the Wrecking Ball. He'll come back in to help this one out, but he is already getting himself poked pretty low. Will pop the self-shield. The Biotic Healing Worm is on top of him as well to keep him healthy as the Moira tries to get back in. Will be using that little spray to try to keep everyone alive, but there's just too many bodies coming back for the side of E7, and they are cleaning up everything faster. With the Earth Shatter coming through, Mentos is in a lot of trouble. He'll try to go into his ball form, but he won't be able to escape for very long, and it looks like E7 won't be able to take this one as all 6 players will focus on the last target. Map 1, or pardon me, part 1 of map 1 will go to E7, 199.
Yeah, crazy back and forth. It looked like they had the setup there. You saw the latter use for Graviton first. Doesn't find the follow-up with his team that they were looking for. A little bit out of sync there. That comes back to what you were saying at the start of the game about the communication, that plan of what they want to do beforehand so everyone can be positioned appropriately. It was a decent grab, but if no one's there to follow it, it might as well have been the worst grab in the world because they get no value out of it. Off the back of that, get back on point. It looks so good. John Allen's winning like for 2v3, 2v4 with his Pharah Mercy, but the last 2 players, Brigitte and Moira, so painfully hard to dislodge. It gives time for the fight to get reset back up, and then from there it just falls apart. So now we're going to see something a little bit the same again actually coming out from License to Tilt, same composition.
Yeah, to start things off, it will be that Doomfist Sombra, but they're going to be going up against a Widow Pharmacy combo with the Ana, and then of course your typical frontliners of Reinhardt and Zarya. And look at this.
Ooh, it's a
License to
switch.
Tilt, they do not want to fight up against this. John Allen, do it, my man. He says, you want to play Pharmacy? Let's play Pharmacy. And JNT will also go on to the Widow, so we've got essentially a mirror matchup with the exception of the supports. Point will unlock, which should give the advantage to E7, but they're not stepping on it yet. Now, finally, Reinhardt will come back to it, but without that shield being there, there could potentially be an opportunity for a pick, and as I said, that JNT will snipe down the Mercy, so a huge advantage without having that res on board for E7, favoring the side of License to Tilt, and Ziri will actually take a splash as well, so a 6-on-4, but look at this, they're stalling. They're not really hitting the gas pedal yet. They need to get in here and start taking some more picks, and finally they'll find the Reinhardt. Phoenix in a load of trouble as he tries to get away. A desperate biotic grenade, but Mentos will actually clean up 3 in that exchange, and J&T winning the Widow trade will put this one back in favor of License to Tilt.
J&T starting that fight off from that Widow pick after making the switch, finishing it off with that final kill as well, looking really good, and you just saw Ziri and Identity. The Pharah Mercy positioning was what it was a fine position when they were up against a Goats or for Reinhardt, Zarya, Doomfist, Sombra, which was but when they made the switch to Widow, he didn't adjust his positioning. His Mercy got punished. Now he goes down again, and so far J&T is just in control of this game.
And you love to see it if you're looking at this elo, for any elo, you want your Widow to pop up, and he finds 2 headshots. J&T put that away. There are ladies present, and he's able to find himself 2 big kills, and again, tilting this fight in favor of License to Tilt. Identity, you need to get out of there. Okay, fortunately, he's able to taxi himself back to his Pharah, but goodness, J&T able to do so much work so far.
Yeah, he's in complete control. He's picked off a Pharah Mercy early both times. Again, you maybe need to look at Ziri and maybe needs to change his pathing or needs more of a distraction from his tanks to go in. Maybe a Winston Diva would help him with that, but obviously his tanks have ultimates and probably do want to get those ones out. But again, J&T on top of this Widow battle. It looks like they might still try and commit to this fight on the inside.
They have a lot of ultimates, so they're probably saying this is winnable. If this is anything like my plat games, everyone's here saying, oh, it's winnable, winnable. We'll see if that does become true. Jancy will be taken down. The barrage coming up for Jalen, though, and John Allen will find a lot of value. At least they find a couple of early picks, and Ziri will actually trade and find the same. The ballsy res from Identity will pay off. Able to find IM res, and that will be enough to likely tilt this back in their favor. The Reinhardt battle still favoring that IM res, but the Earthshatter comes down. Again, they find the damage to peel through all this Mercy healing. It looks like no, not quite yet. It does fall low, and as we get this one moving on the inside, on the outside, not an esport, will actually trade this one back in favor of his Widow battle. So that battle, that game inside of the game, has been going back and forth. I haven't kept tally, but it's about even between esport and JNT so far.
Yeah, he's starting to pull it back, giving his team a chance, but there we see a ballsy push, 5v6. They use the ultimates to make up for their player disadvantage there, and obviously the Widow doesn't have great sidelines through there. And then that ballsy res from Identity. You saw Mentor swinging, but he just couldn't swing quick enough to get rid of the Mercy. And now they're back in that refight. Graviton's on both sides, and this could be a big ult showdown as they come through white.
But Dogsy's looking to set this one up early, I would imagine. And as I said, the Coalescence will come out there, hopefully negate some of that pressure, as that was what was expected from License to Tilt. The Biotic Grenade, though, will hit a handful, and then finally the Graviton Surge right on the top pillar. Another res comes out, so numbers will vastly favor the side of E7, and they needed it too, as it was 95% for License to Tilt, but it will stay in control of E7 throughout that fight.
Important, you know, is Delati chose not to use the Grav in that fight. They seem to be happy to lose that one and now come in with a much bigger advantage from this one. It is a little bit risky when you look how close that control percent. Not an esport with that Widow kill as well, and that might slow them down massively. No Mercy anymore, so no res. They've already started moving over to white, so I think they're going to have to try and commit to this with the time left, but they need to find a way to get value out of Delati's Grav.
Oh, and Mentos, he's so close to that Earthshatter. It needs to be big. He's been a little bit hit or miss with it so far. They will touch at 95%. Graviton Surge comes out with the barrage immediately behind it, and that will be enough for a couple of kills, actually favoring the side of E7. Still have not pulled the trigger on the Earthshatter for Mentos, and won't get the chance. It's not an esport. From the backside, will actually snipe him in the face, and with that kill comes the rest of the fight, and we will see Lijiang Tower go the way of E7.
Solid positioning there from E7 on that final fight. Knew they were at the Grav disadvantage, knew what they were expecting. Played on different sides of the point there, Zarya and Reinhardt playing split. Forces Delati to make a decision. He picks for Zarya, but they can't find the damage to even kill the Zarya. They're distracted trying to deal with the Reinhardt. Again, maybe an example of not having the full setup and full execute onto the Grav, but good position from E7. They take it 2-0, and both teams actually, we didn't mention too much beforehand, but they're both 0-2 so far in Group A in this GitGud tournament. So first win on the cards for both teams and a good start from E7.
First win, best win? Probably. Needed to happen. And yeah, we didn't mention that. That's a really good point to bring out, is that, you know, it's fun to watch these games. I really actually enjoy seeing this just from a simple point when you, especially for those that are avid Overwatch fans, you can kind of get, I guess, desensibilized to like just watching people who play World Cup and Overwatch League. Like, okay, this is just really, really high level. But when you put the spectrum a little bit wider and you start to see teams that are up and coming, whether it's through Overwatch Contenders Trials or through Open, or even here, as they're kind of moving their way through the ELO system, the SR system, you really get the spectrum of, okay, well, now those plays that we're seeing, you know, at the higher level really do, wow, those were incredible plays. And you can kind of see those differences and pick apart some of the things of what goes well, what doesn't go well. You mentioned some of the execution calls from either using an Earthshatter or using one of those game-changing ultimates like a Graviton Surge late or early could potentially swing a fight if you're not 100% prepared for it. And that's a lot of what we saw there on Legion.
I think you're right. I think the grabs are a pretty good demonstration of it as well, because it's such sort of a focal point in fights, regardless of what tier or rank you're at. It's always a big focal point, a big game-winning ultimate. And the differences you see here is how the execution in, say, Contenders or Open Division or Overwatch League, there's always a lot more emphasis on it. There's always a lot of people committing hard to it, whereas here, it seems to be almost used just like any other tool, rather than with that same emphasis and that same heavy team committal that we often see at the higher levels. And I think that's just a good demonstration of what happens at the top level isn't, I guess, always as easy or always second nature as maybe the pros make it look.
Yeah, it's not just another ability on a longer cooldown. This is an ultimate ability and needs to feel like an ultra ability. I wanted to find a synonym and I completely lost.
But yeah, you can see the difference, but I think there's definitely, you can also see that they're trying to do the right things. You can see the counter comps getting picked. You saw counter picks coming out, which in general is quite, you know, probably more towards the advanced side. Something you see a lot of teams do, that instant switch back to spawn to swap the comp and control maps, so they're not left short on that first fight, as it's so important. And these are all sort of good, promising signs, and signs that the teams are actively thinking about the game.
Right.
And trying to make decisions and trying to make correct decisions. And even if they don't always make the best decisions or make the best plan with their ultimates, like the first step to having a good plan is having a bad plan. So they're on the path.
As long as it's a plan. Just come in with some kind of a formula. What is that famous quote about Albert Einstein and light bulbs? You know, why did it take you 97 tries to make a light bulb? He's like, it didn't take me 97 tries to make a light bulb. It took me 97 times to figure out how not to make a light bulb. Is that something like that? Do you have any reference to what I'm saying?
Einstein with for light bulbs? I feel like that was that Ed?
I'm leaving. Let's calm down, okay? On my end, I'm giving myself a pep talk here. Well, is that the quote though? Is it something like that, Edison?
It's in that ballpark.
John Morse, isn't he the guy? Albert Bell I don't know. We're gonna stop talking about this.
I think it was Jack Morrison.
Jack Morrison, yes, that's the guy. John Mayer, that's the guy that made the light bulb. Back in the game, so we have Escort up next. Of course, we saw Control, which typically, if you're a little bit lost on Control, default to 3-3. Now, as we go to Escort, we're going to be seeing Junkertown, which is probably out of most of the Escort maps, like the wild card map here. So as you take a look at this, again, from this SR rating that we're in, you know, around that 3.5-ish at the most, what are you looking at as far as how to successfully push or defend on a estranged map like Junktown?
You're quite right, yeah. Junkertown definitely fits outside of the rest of the compositions we normally see on other maps. You can play really big dive stuff, you can play the Bastion compositions that are just based around the payload, really hard to dislodge. And I think at this elo, again, as we sort of alluded to earlier, like grouping up is good, consistent, and it forces the other team to be more coordinated and make a more sort of high skill, high end kind of play to dislodge it. So I think if you're on attack, you definitely lean into the Bastion strats that you see the pros use. I mean, generally you always want to kind of echo the pros and the comps they use, but I think the Bastion one here definitely could play to a lot of the strengths and could give them a really good attack time on this, like you said, offbeat map.
Well, how about the other battle that we saw near the end of Lijiang, that sniper versus sniper? we typically see a little bit of that on this first point here on Junkertown. I mean, I want to see part 2 because I'm going to start keeping tally of this this battle inside of the battle between JNT and Not an Esport. What's the possibility, would you say, of seeing things like a double sniper, though? We've been seeing Hanzo kind of work his way in with Widow kind of to bring more consistent damage to fights. And of course, the Dragon Strike combo with the Zarya is, that speaks for itself. What other things are you looking for, though, potentially, besides, your Bastion pirate chip or maybe the Widow battle that we typically see at first point?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about the Widow, especially in that first point with all the sight lines. I think the alternative strategy is obviously to go heavy dive. So you're looking at your Genji, your Sombra, your Tracer, and just play a really high-tempo game and try and get into that back line. Again, the problem with that is because of how open it is, there's not a lot of stuff to hide behind to get past, say, a Widow or, say, a Hanzo or a Bastion or anything that has line of sight to you. So, but I still think the Sombra, obviously, with the stealth, still has that ability regardless of how open it is. If anything, open areas actually benefit her. So I would quite like to see the Sombra if teams find themselves stumped by a defense or stumped dealing with a Bastion, because I think it can really, you can take your time with that one. You can guarantee you're in a good position before you engage. And I think that might be a good fallback to have if they're having troubles dislodging people off the objective.
I like that you use the word fallback because it really is like that safer second option potentially if things are giving you a little bit of a headache, and especially as you get through that streets phase, it can be a little bit more advantageous to a little bit of that sneakiness that you typically see out of a Sombra, getting free vision and stuff like that. But we will be jumping into Junkertown again. First and foremost, the teams will have switched colors. So we will be seeing the red being sported by License to Tilt and the blue being sported by E7 this time around. And it's actually really funny. In chat, they're saying nobody really knows what E7 means. It's just like a thing. I don't know if it's like a way of them playing off of like a C9 and they're trying to like phrase their own new meme or what it is, but I like it.
Well, we'll keep our eye out for an opportunity to dub
Coin
something in E7.
like
yeah, like
right.
If something happens that's particularly outrageous, that's an E7.
I like it. We'll have to make sure we get on the same page with that one. And maybe we'll see another one of those Tale of Two Earthshatters not written by Charles Dickens. That's a reference that I can pull. I might not know Edison and Einstein, but I do know my Charles Dickens. We'll keep that one rolling in my favor of the literature references this time through.
Well, everyone gets one, I guess.
It's true. Tell him, Peter. Apparently everyone gets one. All right. Starting things off defensively, we will see Not an Esport rocking the Widow, and they're actually using an Orisa on defense as well here with a D.Va. So a little bit of a polar opposite in their double front line when they look at the defensive setup. Do you like this, or is this a little strange for you?
I think it's okay. I think it gives them more durability, not as much kill potential, so we are going to have to lean on their Hanzo and their Widowmaker a lot more, especially against this the triple tank, triple support competition coming out from E7. They do lose the Moira, and that's the worst person to lose early on, so that will slow him down a little bit. But in general, this Reinhardt can just run over this.
Well, and I really like that little peek that he had, mostly because throughout all that, Ziri was actually throwing the Storm Arrows into Delati, and as soon as he got that health pull low on the D.Va, there was no one to push on the Esport, and he just had a free line of sight there, and that resulted in that early pick onto the Moira. Not sure if we could coin that as an E7 just yet, but I like it. Not an Esport will be taken down by that Sombra pick that you had mentioned earlier in our little breakdown, and that will be, again, maybe that little bit of that backdoor secondary pick that we needed. Now looking to move on forward, but Identity is met with a shield bash into the face, and actually a D-Mac on the Dogsies, so even though the picks do favor the side of Not an Esport, pardon me, not an Esport, then do the side of License to Tilt, they're not able to find themselves as much success as I think they were looking for from E7's perspective. The Dragon Strike will come out right in the face of that Earthshatter, and now the Coalescence being used to try to keep people healthy. A nice shield being put on the Mentos to make sure that Biotic Grenade does not affect his Reinhardt. And that will be enough to get all of these last cleared up picks. The first stage will be completed with a successful push.
Another great early pick-off by JNT. We saw it on Lijiang Tower when he got that Widow pick onto the Mercy. Just basically wins the fight for his team there with such a significant advantage. It's the exact same thing with a Widow here. When you're playing Orisa against a sort of high-tempo, tanky lineup, you can't engage. You have to sort of just back up and give space and try and get a pick-off with your snipers. But as soon as the Widowmaker goes down, that makes it so much easier for License to Tilt, and then they just rolled over that one. Now they're coming in EMP grab from this next fight, and it's looking good to stagger this one out even more.
And they find the early pick onto the Sombra, which will, again, give them a little bit more of a sense of security as they don't have to worry about anything popping up behind them or even that EMP. And with that, non-esport will take down Fanum again. That's a little bit of a repeat of what we saw first and foremost in this battle. And now with the Junkrat coming out, this is going to be... I like Junkrat a lot on the second point because of all the spam angles, the bouncing paths. It's kind of creates a pinball effect, and you're not really ever sure as an offender where you're going to be getting hit from, and that's going to be the case as you're going to be getting sniped and as well blasted by some Junkrat nades.
Yeah, especially on the high ground as well. So difficult for them to get in there. Only really the Sombra can get in there, but they are watching that door. Identity's not swinging though, so won't actually catch the Sombra. But I think here if I'm looking at from License to Tilt's perspective, they need to go for a rotation through the house because they need to force them off this high ground. Because otherwise they can't win this fight. But they're gonna try and just sort of slow walk.
Oh no, JNT walked right into a trap. You can't do that. He had a perfect EMP lined up. Nobody was even looking at him, and he walks right into that big old Junkrat trap, and Ziri will punish with a couple of kills off the Riptire. That's catastrophic.
That's gonna reset them pretty hard. Still 3 minutes left on the clock, not all over. They have big ultimates, but this is the danger with these Orisa, Junkrat, Widow compositions. You can just keep getting pickoffs, you can keep slowing them down, you charge that Infosight, you charge that Riptire, you can just win fights off foes, and it buys so much time. And so far, License to Tilt haven't been able to find a way to engage, and again, now they're going for this flank route. I think they're going underneath, and now they're going to force rotation. This should yield better results.
Oh, but they're ready for it. The Infosight is there. Mentos throws his Earthshatter right into an Orisa shield. Oh, you can't. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. They will eventually clean up a couple of kills because they literally threw everything plus the kitchen sink at that Orisa shield. And that will be enough for them to get a couple of cleanup kills. But still, you look at these values, and some of them are just not getting min-max where you want to see them.
They had the right idea, and when that grab landed, they had everyone grouped up. They just couldn't find the follow-up damage there. I'm not quite sure exactly why. I don't know if the healing was just too strong. I know we saw the nano boost go down, so that would have made one target particularly hard to deal with. But it just felt like they needed more follow-up. They needed Mentos to get more value out of swinging into that grab. Couldn't get it, get reset again, and now they're right back to square one. Orisa on the high ground, and they're making switches. They go in dive there.
That's a big oof for me, Mr. X. Commander. Dr. X. And now Mentos jumping in. Biotic Grenade will be used in response from E7. And Riptire coming out as well. That'll be enough to take down John Allen, who was attempting to get into the back line, but again gets trapped by Junkrat. How many times are we going to see people getting trapped by Junkrat? That thing is looking like an absolute... I don't know, a menace to society at this point in time as they clean everything up. Non-esport will find the last two, but you gotta look out for these traps. There's a Junkrat. It's a crucial part of his kit. Stop standing in them.
Yeah, it's two free picks, especially on the first one onto the Sombra, second one onto the Genji, both high-value targets. And again, those early pickoffs. And suddenly, they had a big time bank of 3 minutes. Now we're looking at 1 minute. John Allen not particularly close to the blade. They have the EMP, but they've struggled to find clean engages so far. And right now, they're just looking really comfortable, E7. They're looking in control of it.
On the other side of it, even when they do get a blade up, I really wish I would have seen Anna here. I think that boost would really bode more successful for everyone coming in. Mentos will stomp right on top of the Widow and find the kill, so that will open things up in favor of our boys from License to Tilt, looking to find some more. Ziri will actually get boosted as he was a little bit out of position. Dogsy D-Mac trying to hide behind the Orisa shield, but there it is, too many numbers. And with the EMP coming out, that'll be a successful combo. Hey, you'll love to see it. Delani getting himself too. That'll be the second stage completed. It was sloppy, but they did get it to where it needed to go.
I think they got a little gift there when the nano boost went onto the Junkrat. Trying to do consistent, reliable damage as Junkrat when you're against a dive composition. Super difficult. You saw Ziri move forward, try and make it work, but unfortunately couldn't connect anything, and then they were forced to rotate. And that's what they wanted to do initially with when they went underneath. As soon as you force that Orisa comp to rotate, you can start picking. They finally get it there, but they're going to have to keep doing this again and again and again. Now they've got the Anna, so they've got a nano boost chance. But all eyes on John Allen with that. Oh, I was about to say all eyes on John Allen. But cancel that.
Look away, and Riptire will blow him up right in his face. A good trigger, to be honest, from Jiri. And with that comes a lot of aggression from the side of E7. E7, they'll be able to clean up a handful, and they're actually going to be able to hold on to a lot of ultimates as well. They use the rally just for the extra speed boost. The Lottie, they're looking to stagger her out, and she'll just take that one on the chin, and that'll be enough. Again, under 60 seconds here, we're getting into a little bit of the desperate measures that calls for desperate times.
Yeah, super low on time. Good use by Zuri to get that Riptide kill, identified the primary threat to his team right there, neutralizes it straight away. Now John Allen over onto the Pharah, has to play into a Widowmaker though, so needs to be careful for that. He really needs J&T to take responsibility for occupying not an esport in the backline.
Well, it'll be a bold strategy. John Allen did have a lot of success early, and Bassie's going to have to help out with this pharmacy combo. Were they ready for it? Comes right around the side, and Delati will actually dive right into non-esport. They'll take down the Supercharger Bongo as well, and with that will come a very desperate Rip Tire out of the backline and looking for a target, but there's just really nobody there. Finally, we'll turn around for Mentos, so they will find value taking down a frontliner, but the numbers are just too much in favor of License to Tilt, and they just see if they can find these couple of kills, it would be big. Brigida, oh, Identity, he's trying to play this one a little bit more coyly as he's just sitting in the backline. I don't think anyone knows he's there, so he will likely survive, but he's going to have a really difficult time coming back to him. They actually get the remake onto Dogsy as well, so potential to pincer this one through, and here they come coming forward, but where's the rest of the team? They need to get there. V7 wants to have a chance to make this a little bit more successful. The self-destruct will come out from Dogsy. They'll find Mentos once again, and with that comes all the other aggression from E7. They'll clean up a couple, even though they will get the res on the Mentos. The EMP comes right back out, and with that, again, just trades for trades. We're left with a 4-on-3 on point, and Ziri on the May will be able to hold everyone in place, and that will be enough to hold the defense right before the third point gets pushed.
Few good elements from both teams there. You look at License to Tilt, we questioned the Pharah picks maybe into the Widow, but obviously they were clearly aware of it, and you saw the tanks make it priority number one to shut down an esport and allow John Allen to get in a position to get value out of that Pharah. And they did win that fight, get themselves in a good position, but then good improvisation from E7 with that Brigitte behind to put their Diva behind as well, and just force that pincer movement you talked about. And especially when it's an overtime, and you have to keep your feet on the car, and you've got players in front of you, you've got threats behind you that you have to deal with, that pressure in your runner. It's what you always want to do in Overwatch. You want to give your opponent really difficult decisions to make, and right then, License to Tilt had a series of really difficult decisions. Works out well, and they get the hold.
It was close, though. I mean, that's a bold call to sit there on the Brigida and the Diva and say, hey, we can stay out of line of sight here and come back for this. Because if they get picked, and that last fight's a 6-on-4, that very well could be the third point without much cause for concern from License to Tilt. But that's a tale of a different day and not one that we'll see here today. So as we switch back over, we're going to now see the side of E7 giving themselves a go, and it will be License to Tilt, you know, hopefully setting themselves up a more successful defense than what we had seen them kind of push through, at least initially on offense.
It's going to be a bit of a strange one. We're going to lead it with John Allen on the Tracer, which is, again, I mean, we questioned his picks before and we've been wrong, but obviously the Tracer, pretty good in all situations generally, and will be okay here, but not one you normally see. And again, they're going with Orisa Diva, so they've got good sustainability. But it'll be interesting to see how John Allen tries to play in this one. I presume he's going to try and play quite flank heavy.
And that would be big if they could find themselves an Ana for free. That's what they're looking for. First of all, J&T gets an early pick onto the Orisa, and which allows them to then take a look at Mercy. J&T popping off early, but still now looking at John Allen's direction. What can he make happen? Looking for Phoenix in the backline. We'll actually get a D-Mech on the Dogsy. They will res up J&T, so numbers still favoring the side of License to Tilt, and look how chaotic things are on the side of E7. They're not really sure where to go, what to do, as they're completely split up.
Classic Widowmaker Tracer play. Widowmaker setting up a pretty strong safe position, especially behind that Orisa shield. Meanwhile, the Tracer playing a sort of harass style when either they're a flank or behind. Just sort of drags the team in different positions, drags them into the Widowmaker sidelines, and then if it's not the Widowmaker headshot in you, it's the Tracer in your back, or vice versa. And we saw exactly that here in the site already up for J&T as he looks to try and continue his reign of terror on jungle.
I like this. The combination of Mentos off the halt plus these shots from J&T over the Orisa shield have been very well executed thus far. Now they're looking at John Allen's direction. He wants to put a lot of pressure in the back line, but again, not an esport. Switching to McCree, he wants to try to find a way to counter at least some of this and maybe bring some snipe potential himself. Ziri now jumping forward, and they're going to dive right on the J&T, who's able to somehow move away from all of that? Oh, finally they're able to track him back down, but it's at a cost, and it will be a res. So now actually there will be numbers favoring the side of E7, but they're going to have to go through a supercharger, and that is in a very nice position as there's a little bit of the environment also helping block that one through. Ziri will jump into the blade, will actually slash on through one, and then use the blade to find the other. That was a good value there, finding 3 kills, all of them squishy, which will leave the frontliners left alive, at least for a short time, and that's easy focus for E7 to clean up and find the first point.
Good prioritization again, focusing down that Widowmaker. We've seen them, both teams, be pretty good at identifying that main threat and dedicating a lot of resources to that one. They do a good job to try and peel for J&T, but that Bionade eventually does help them secure the kill. And then from there, they get in a little bit of a weird position, E7, and it's maybe a bit dangerous from that supercharger, but they do a good job of stabilizing and waiting and not committing until they have that Dragon Blade to go in with. Now they're rolling forward, Deadeye and Nano Boost available, but now they've got to push into this Widowmaker on high ground. Bomb over the top.
Ooh, an Identity will be caught by the self-destruct. Not sure if IamRez thought he had everything enclosed with his initial shield, but he did not have Identity, so no res on board. Mentos will be boosted, and they're going to push their advantage right now. Will license the tilt and looking for a way to slap through the last couple of players, but oh, not enough healing coming off the Mentos direction. They were too busy trying to damage boost up J&T from the backline to come back through, and with that comes not an esport with the counterattack, finding himself 2 kills plus the res, so now numbers all of a sudden favoring E7.
An overextend there, it has to be said. I think they saw the opportunity for more kills, but didn't realize exactly, you know, especially with Ana and Mercy. Bionade plus the Mercy beam over top has a lot of peel. Mentos going to try and recontest it, but shatters into a shield. Doesn't allow him to kill the supercharger, but now Mentos again out here by himself here, Shift.
Oh, he's trying to sneak on back. Fortunately, John Allen is coming through huge. He finds 3 kills plus a sleep dart. Ended up hitting the McCree. The blade, question mark? This is the most heroic blade that was ever seen in Overwatch, and it will end very, very quickly. Ziri, not so sure about that one. He's going to want that back.
Bit of a misread of a situation there. Basti dropped the Valkyrie, so everyone was fairly well topped up. It wasn't a particularly favorable trade. Mentos makes a good job of what's ultimately a difficult position, just absorbing that pressure. They've got the Pharah, they've got the Widow. As long as Mentos can just sort of die slow and be a nuisance, he's going to buy more and more time for those 2 DPS players to find an opportunity. Works out for them there, but they're still trying to work this one forward. And so far, I've not seen a lot from Not an Esport on McCree here. I would like to see him get a bit more involved in the game. And there we go.
Ask for it, Commander X, and it shall happen. Able to find J&T in the counter pick, and Ziri will now open things up. And again, this is where he probably wishes he had his blade. He still finds one pick. The Barrage will try to make something happen, but not able to find enough value. But look at this, Not an Esport coming back through with another double kill, plus the res. That will secure the rest of this push. A minute and about 50 seconds on the clock as they successfully push checkpoint B.
Good time so far. You normally see McCree versus Widow. Widow's always on top just because she's got the huge range advantage, got mobility advantage as well. But they managed to find a way to make it work, playing it slow behind the Orisa shield. Then it comes in, and then John Allen's forced into a desperate barrage, completely shut down by Dog. And now they can keep this one rolling forward. Still with that Nano Boost, still with that Deadeye, but we're seeing more switches coming out from the side of License to Tilt. They definitely seem to be trying to think a few steps ahead, and now they've got a front-loaded team.
And this is kind of where, you know, McCree has this weird balance of, yeah, he's great for that hit scan counter picks, but it's so hard to find value out of the Deadeye. It's almost like you barely ever use it, and if you do, it usually just hits the shield. Sleeping in the backline will be J&T, who will be taken down immediately afterwards, looking for a cheeky play in the backline. Mentos will actually follow up with a from downtown charge, and actually will be able to find Dogsy. That won't be enough for the full kill, just the D-Mech, but now way out in Mozambique is Mentos, and the rest of the team is just not there with them as of yet. Finally, they'll come back and regroup right on top of the payload. A good early stagger from the defense, though, of
Where's Phoenix going? Where's he going?
I'm lost.
Maybe should have just died on the cart there. Ends up getting stalled out a little bit. But again, we saw this front-loaded switch from License to Tilt, and now this is where you're going to see IamRZ. He's going to have a real tough time on this Orisa, because every time they get into position, he's just going to get run over. Similar situation with McCree. Danger that they just get run over. They now have the Nano Blade, and this might be the tool they need.
Not exactly the smoothest engagement of it, and the initiation will be met with a Graviton Surge right in the face of that Genji, who will be taken down, and with that come vast amounts of numbers. for the side of Licensed to Tilt. Unfortunately, though, John Allen says, I'm moving forward, even though he was met with the biotic grenade. They do have the res, so that get out of jail free card will be enough for them to retain the numbers that they previously had and the win that they should have had with the team fight.
Nanoblade was really the only danger to them in that composition when they were just able to run in with the Orisa so well. But huge big brain grab from Delati to sacrifice for Grav. I don't think he intended to get the Mercy as well. He was just focusing on getting the Genji, neutralizing that Nanoblade. But you know, you make the right plays. Sometimes you get a little bit of luck your way as well. You catch them. Huge play, undoes a lot of that ultimate advantage, and now they're in a pretty strong position to hold off the back of this EMP.
And they have themselves the rally early, so this will be good to get that extra little bit. Not Esport will try to pull high noon, and they find Basti. That's a good pick, just simply because there will be no more res. With that Mercy being down, the Earthshatter will stall out this engagement from a little bit from the side of E7, but they'll still find a little bit of value. But with RZ being taken away, no real frontliner here. You can see Dogsy is way in the back line, just making sure the support stays safe, making sure that EMP doesn't find extreme value. But with RZ getting taken out, this is a delayed engagement, only 20 seconds left.
You see the real problem here with playing a solo Reinhardt or Reinhardt Diva without the Brigitte and Zarya. They just get run over. Now a self-destruct to initiate, doesn't find anything, but forces them back, and they've made a bit of space here, actually.
Now RZ wanted to find the charge to pull on the the shield, and will end up actually finding himself a big Earthshatter, allowing them to find 2 kills for the 1 sacrifice that was RZ. Looking for a res, and they will get it. So now the Reinhardt back in action. Nalati in a little bit of trouble. Make that a lot of bit of trouble, as there's nothing but blue jerseys around him. He will be taken down, and not an Esport who stayed safe throughout all of this engagement. Will make full value out of the 6-shooter, and that'll be enough for him to find 3 kills in that engagement. Overtime will fade away, and now we're in desperate measures for the side of License to Tilt. E7 looking to push this through. They will. It'll be 2 maps to none after Junkertown finish.
I feel License to Tilt were just a little bit unfortunate in that one. It looked so good for them going into that final hold. I felt like they made the correct switches going onto that sort of heavy loaded front line. But you see there the danger of just playing any composition in any situation without a Diva. And that Deadeye over the top exposes their lack of mobility, how grounded they were, finds that open pick onto the Mercy, and then they can sort of ult their way through to a 1 fight. And it's really unfortunate because it was going really well for License to Tilt. But now they're on the brink, Shift. They're on the brink.
They're on the brink indeed, and it's not a brink that License to Tilt wants to be at, because you know, what's that famous phrase? Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. Well, they're 1 sneeze away from falling off that edge.
As well.
That was also Einstein. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you're coming with me on this journey through history and quotes. I love it. Speaking of bringing back things that we absolutely don't think are memes, let's go ahead and take a look at Green Havoc. Green 76, Soldier Havoc 6. What did you have to think about these games there, from all of your vast battle experience there?
Well, to me, it seems like the ult economy isn't being managed at its peak. Well, at its peak is the best way to say it. We've seen a lot of these engagements start to look shaky, and then players start to try to bring it back from the brink. And I think they're getting punished for it. We saw that towards the end of Junkertown's second, with Shatters being committed to already lost team fights. But I'm curious to hear what my analysts think about these games. So, Commander, when it comes to the ult economy, building off what I was just saying, what do you think is the primary problem for License to Tilt?
I think a lot of the problem comes from it's easy to decide before a fight what ultimates you want to use, because you can say, right, we have these 2 ultimates, they don't have a support ult, we'll use this to engage. Where it gets difficult is when it's these longer drawn out fights and it's a little bit chaotic, and then you're having to use stuff a bit more of your own intuition, or you've got to rely on information from your teammates in that fight. And I think that's where it started to fall apart a little bit for License. There didn't seem to be that same communication of exactly how winnable or not winnable a fight was. So while the players maybe saw an opportunity to get a good shatter off or get a good blade off, his teammates weren't actually in a position to support that or to help that or to turn that. And I think, again, it's one of the hardest things to look at because it's communication, which we can't see, but it definitely leans itself towards that explanation.
Very true. I think it's a big reason why we see a lot of these bunker and more GOATs-like comps, these 3-3s It's more about the fundamentals and working as a group with a clear objective. And sometimes the simplest plan is the best plan. I hold shift. When we're talking about these teams moving forward into the next games and as the halftime comes to an end, what are some of the things that you want to see these teams change moving forward?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we're going to be going on to an assault match. So the double control point really is those elongated, long team fights that end up happening. And you got to find a way to make sure that you're sustaining properly and that you are finding the proper triggers. It's easy for us to sit here and take a look at it from an overhead perspective and say, well, don't earth shatter into a shield. But the problem is it's easier said than done. And that's why when you take a look at things, as much of a meme it is to kind of use the resident sleeper emoji when you're looking at goats, there are a lot of intricacies that are difficult to pull off in these 3-3 comps when it comes to making sure that every ability you use finds value. And it's a really big hurdle to step over as a younger or newer player in the scene. It looks easier than it actually is. So as you take a look at those coordination elements that Commander X brought up, I think that that's really where the struggles are lying, not just for one team or the other, but for both. And as you take a look at a double control point map, I think you're going to see a lot of those things really over-embellished when it comes to longer fight.
I think that's a great point. Did you have a counterpoint, Commander?
No, I completely agree. I think, especially once you get to point B, like point A, you can kind of trade kills if you're the offense, and that can work out for you in the long run. You can eventually just sort of turn that into an advantage. But once you get to point B, especially if they do stick on Hanamura, and point B on Hanamura is notorious for being difficult to cap at any level. So I think this is where we're really going to see the teams get separated out more. This is where we're going to see the sort of divide the men from the boys, I guess, because that point B is so difficult, and if they are wasting ultimates, if they are not getting clean entries or getting their supports in safely, they're just going to, each mistake is going to be punished twice as much on this assault maps.
Very true, very true. It really does help show the difference between individual versus team value in these fights. The difference in a GOATS comp for a Brigitte player, supporting the Reinhardt, peeling for the backline versus individual value is so monumental when you're talking about especially taking point B, like you were just saying. As far as our picks go, are we staying with E7 over License to Tilt?
I think it's hard not to at this point in time, as much as it is, we were joking about, wanting to see John Allen fail. We all want to see everyone play well and do well, and everyone has played well and done well. I mean, these games have been close, for all things considered. Unfortunately, I think, if you're looking at it as a fan from John Allen's perspective, I think that E7 just generally, they're coordinating a little bit better. They're not walking into straight Junkrat traps. So I'm just going to go ahead and give the slight game awareness tilt in favor of E7 still.
Very fair, very fair.
I think I'd have to lean into that as well. I think, like you said, we talked about it a bit as well. License to Tilt seem to be making the right kind of decisions. They're making the switches. They're using the Graviton and the Nanoblade. They seem to be more proactively trying to figure stuff out. But sometimes their execution just lets them down. Like when we saw those players getting trapped repeatedly or getting picked off by a Widow repeatedly. And you make enough of these sort of small errors throughout a map, and suddenly your time bank's just completely shot. And I think that's what they suffered from there. And E7 were on hand to capitalize.
Well, I hear the teams are ready to re-engage. They've taken their time to plan their engagements, hopefully a little differently for License to Tilt, as they need to bring this back from the brink. They're looking at a 3 maps in a row if they want to be able to take this series. So, casters, you know what that means. The red lights are on, we're ready to engage, and I'm gonna duck on out of here and let you do your jobs. Good luck, cadets.
I don't think that's ever going to get old.
I was surprised again, like I'd forgotten it had happened, so I was re-surprised.
That's like a double mint spearmint gum commercial, double the pleasure, double the fun, as we're again is continually surprised by, I guess we'll call him Red Havoc this time around after that code red. I want to be invited to his house and do like a MTV Crib style, because I just know that he's got like framed posters of like, I don't know, like the They Were From Mars, wherever the cinematography poster is in Hollywood. You know what I'm talking about? I bet he's got one of those framed up on his wall somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd watch that. I'd watch MTV Cribs with Green Havoc.
With Green Havoc? Same.
Yeah, I'd watch
same.
that. Yeah.
I want to be in that. I don't want to just watch it. I want to be in there, like the proverbial swimwear. So we'll be again. E7 will be rocking the blue this time around as we do go to Hanamura. So John Allen and crew will be over on the red, and they will be, looks like, being on attack first and foremost. And I think that they need to have a good, solid, strong initial engagement just to set the tone, have the ultimate economy first and foremost in your favor for the first time, what feels like the entire set, and then make a move to continue to find that momentum.
Exactly, and I think the main danger that sort of echoes that as well is they need to avoid these individual pickoffs or these getting caught by traps or caught in a wouldn't make a sideline. They need strong, clean engagement. And if they can iron that out, I think they'll be in a really good position. But easier said than done.
Easier said than done, and they're going to have to do it up against a Mei and a Widow, which will provide a lot of disruption, without a doubt. Look at this early setup from IamRez. No one sees him! Oh no, Mentos! And then he counters back, but the wall was there. Whoa, that was a little bit of fun, a little bit of a tug-of-war battle between our Reinhardts that will go in favor of IamRZ. A little cheeky play will pay off. Thank you for the Mei wall, because otherwise that was going to go Mentos' way.
Yeah, you almost rolled that one straight back, but there you go. There's an important lesson. Check your corners always. If you expect a Reinhardt and you don't see a Reinhardt, start panic, and that'll give him a nice free first fight win and some good ult charge for him as well. And now we're in a bit more of a standard Rein's just bashing away at each other.
Well, even still, you say that, but it's Mentos who has the 60% to RZ's 47. But once again, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. I need to rethink my strategy as the Mei wall once again provides that peel that they want to find. This time, John Allen, who says, okay, that's not very fun. Let's find a way to change this up.
Exactly. They need to either go hard with their engages so they can at least sort of force a few players through, or try and fake the engage with speed boost to bait out the wall and go afterwards, or just swap to a more mobile comp. But they're starting to get up towards their ultimates. They have that Earth Shatter, which they drop straight away. This time the wall doesn't save them, but that Earth Shatter...
It did enough, though. It kept the supports out of line of sight. It was a good counter re-engage from IamRZ. They end up finding almost a full Earth Shatter on the entire team. Easy cleanups, and the time, it just keeps on ticking. And so far, the Steve Miller Band and that song from what was made popular of Space Jam. I don't know if you followed me on that reference.
Is that the one with Einstein?
That starring and co-starring.
Einstein and Bugs Bunny, right?
Yes, Einstein and Bugs Bunny. And moving into this freeze frame, it will be Zeri finding an early kill on Nabasi. So again, this push will be delayed. They do find RZ, though. The Blizzard will come out near the back line, which will provide just a little bit of extra stagger. And with that comes another team win going for E7's direction.
They're getting so much value out of these Mei walls, and then not an esport as well. It's hitting all these shots, getting that follow-up damage, and they're going to be forced out at this point again. And so far, it's been a similar approach, and it's been constantly undone in very similar ways. 1 minute 33 seconds left on the clock. At what point do you change? You're now really close to ultimates. This is a tough decision, I think, for any team in this situation.
Yeah.
You have to use the ultimates because you spent so much time investing in them. I think you just need to find a smarter way to get around that.
Well, Identity will actually smell out JNT as he used the translocator just to get over the wall. They're having a really hard time dealing with this Mei. Now finally coming through. The Earth Shatter is good. Graviton Surge comes out and will trap up two, including RZ near the end of that channel. Will be pulled through, but it immediately recountered by a self-destruct that finds two. It was a good engagement. They hit the execute call correctly. They just could not follow up. And E7 will take the advantage back once again, now under 60 seconds.
They did the right thing. Delassie goes through first. Ben can just use his boost to just get back over wall. Then they can re-engage in a team. Problem is, I think they get a bit overexcited. They use too many ultimates. They use the grab. They use the shatter. They focus split targets. They find no kills. Then get caught by the self-destruct. And you see it quite a lot. When teams have a lot of ultimates, everyone just presses Q and nobody plays them around each other properly. 30 seconds left. Last chance.
JNT needs to have a good EMP. We'll find most of them. The self-destruct comes out brilliantly from Delati. Good timing there, and finally they get the team fight in their favor. The Coalescence just to secure it, but the numbers are just so vastly in favor of License to Tilt. They'll finally take this point. Again, it's sloppy, but they get it there. It will be an overtime, though, so they won't get the full time back that they want.
I think it's good to see, like, like we saw about getting caught by the wall. I mean, it took him 2.5 minutes to fix it, but they do fix it. Then they improve it. Then they sort of mess up their ult combos, but that ult combo, self-destruct and EMP, classic combo, and they executed it perfectly. And now they've got, that was the easy part, unfortunately. This is now the hard part for them, and they've only got the sound barrier to make it work with. And these Mei walls again.
It's hard, man. I'm sitting here looking at all of those flashing check marks from the side of E7, and it's just saying, you gotta fight this one dry. Bait out whatever you can. Hopefully get a couple of picks. Bait out more. Don't use anything here because you're likely not gonna win this fight. The Biotic Grenade will help supplant that, but they do use the boost. They do use the Blizzard. So really, all in all, even though this was a dry fight, they forced out a lot, does license the tilt, and now they can come back with this next fight with a little bit more in their swinging, in their back pocket when it comes to ultimates.
I think you're happy with that, actually. As long as you find a way through this Mei wall, you've got the sound barrier to give you that durability. In that time, you should get up to that EMP. I was about to say you get up to grab, but they're actually going Genji now. Probably better suited for this point anyway. But I think you actually have a good chance. And actually, they're keeping Delati onto the Zarya now. So sticking with that right Zarya, maybe not as keen on that against this, against the setup here with the double sniper. Because you feel like you could do with a tank to get on like a Winston or a Diva to jump on those snipers. But we'll see how they go. They'll have to play it a bit slower, but they do have ultimates to make it work.
Would you have rather have seen them make this triple swap right after the first point and just make sure they got some farm up, or is this more of a reactionary kind of adjustment?
I think it's fine since they were trading ults anyway, but they are just going to walk straight into that Earth Shatter and get cleaned up. So a lot of their ult advantage is going to be undone there. Good economic victory there for E7. One ultimate for a one fight. Happy with, and now it's back to the drawing board. And this is the danger. Those double snipers provide a constant threat for E7.
Absolutely does, and the last thing you want to do if you're licensed to tilt is to find any of your supports getting staggered here. That would be absolutely crushing. And the Infra Site will be used just to try to make that dream a reality for E7. And now looking at everyone kind of split apart. The Genji trying to fire some shots, and there it is, early pick onto the Sombra. Was sniffed out early by that Infra Site. Headshot from Zeri will take him down, and now we're in full stagger mode. And man, you would have loved to have had one more engagement just to try to get this nano boost closer to being realized, because the blade is close, but the boost is nowhere near it, and they really do need a boost blade combo here.
I think so, yeah, because John Allen's really, and J&T to a certain degree, but the snipers just holding high ground, which make it difficult for J&T. So really, a lot of emphasis on John Allen to find these opening picks. He's going to move into the flank side here, but he's taking a lot of damage. They're going through middle, actually, here, so they're going to allow themselves to be surrounded. This is dangerous from License to Tilt.
And Basti, if he does have a sound barrier, will try to trigger it right on the back end of an EMP. The boost goes down into RZ, trying to find his way to slap there, but there are so many full health pulls for the side of License to Tilt. Non-Esport will change that back in their favor as he does find a headshot onto John Allen. Really their only big source of damage at this point. That plus the res from Zeri will tilt this fight in favor of E7 once again. We're going to be under 40 seconds for the reset.
I was super nervous watching that setup for him. It looked really awkward. It looked like they were walking into a trap. But you saw them all move to point, bait down the enemy tanks, and then drop the EMP over everyone. Really good intelligent play, good setup. Unfortunately, Phoenix did have a nano boost to help keep his tank line safe, so they were able to heal through it. Nice idea. Maybe hadn't factored in all the support ults that were available, but nice idea. Problem is now 20 seconds left. John Allen didn't get a chance to use his blade, but they do nearly have that nano blade combo. But it's going to be a tough one to get themselves into a position here.
And with that time ticking away, he's going to be really impatient. Just pull the trigger early, and there's nobody up top there, John. Who are you slapping through? He uses that for absolutely nothing, unfortunately, but it will be J&T trying to make the damage come true as he's able to find two good picks, one onto the Mercy and then also onto the Hanzo later on in the engagement. Now with the Graviton Surge being used, that'll be an easy setup to take down RZ. Not an Esport with the counter pick, but there are no big bodies on the field for anybody. John Allen, the last hope. He's already put into the purple. Dogsy will be res. Does he have enough to get the mech back? He does. So now Mentos trying to charge, but immediately met with a nap. The Earth Shatter will not come through, and this will likely be the numbers favoring E7 for the hold. Oh, that's unfortunate. You hate to see it. Feels major bad, man. John Allen with another blade. He's going to try desperately, but there's just not enough hack and slash in the tank to make it happen.
I think you picked out the exact right part. Impatience on that blade there. They had the nano boost coming up. They could have taken a slower engage. They tried to do the same thing where they came out halfway across the high ground. They dropped a point and try and bait them in. This time they didn't have the EMP to follow up on. The nano blade wasn't quite ready. Again, rushed. And I think you feel the pressure there of a time clock, and I think this is maybe another important difference to highlight between what we're seeing and Overwatch League is when you see with Overwatch League, there's normally a sort of plan ahead of time to touch the point. So you don't. So in this case, you could use your Sombra just to touch the point and trigger that over time because you've got that 3-second window. Whereas you don't have to commit to the full push that early on. You can still try and farm it up. But you got to give props to Not an Esport again. Always finding that key target on the Widow.
Yeah, you have to give it to them. I mean, they played that one absolutely smoothly. And now, well, I won't say it's all over, but the singing, because we're not there yet. They end up finding a little bit of success, just the 1 point, of course, but where do you go from here to set up this defense? Of course, the Mei was so detrimental when it came to them trying to push, and now E7 will get a go at that attack, and we will see John Allen pulling out the Mei.
Yep, no surprise to see him use the exact same strategy that was used against them. It's something I think we've seen them do a couple of times where they've swapped to match their opponents or replicate their opponents. And the Mei's definitely effective. They definitely need some defensive time on this first point, and the Mei wall can obviously be a quite easy win condition that you can just use from the first fight onwards here. But it's not impossible. We talked about how difficult Hanamura is to cap, so hopefully for License to Tilt, E7 will run into the same problems.
We'll see. They're taking a different approach, moving through the building structures and then right back to the point. They will scout out what they're going up against. John Allen with a good wall, but not good enough as it didn't quite catch RZ, and Ziri will just thrust up and over as if it were just a small hurdle. Now looking for the freezes. JNT will find a nice headshot onto Phoenix to start things off 6 on 5, but still engaging JNT with a second pick onto the Brigida, and that'll be enough for E7 to reconsider how they want to approach. JNT says, not today, not in my house, and he finds himself 2 big headshot picks.
Great play again. JNT has definitely been, both Widows to be fair, but JNT in particular definitely seems to have the slight edge in that Widow battle, consistent, finding the picks there. And even though you saw Zuri make the right move, baiting out the wall, they still played it well. They still made use of the wall when it was back off cooldown, and it's back to the drawing board for E7.
Yes, it is, and again, now a little bit more in trouble as there are ultimates close, if not already charged for the side of License to Tilt. Wall goes up, Ziri goes up and over once again. Not quite able to find RZ, wanted to and was close, but he ends up just getting boosted up to high ground. Earthshatter though, is huge! Feeling like an earthquake as he takes down nearly everybody, and that'll be enough off of the back end of one ultimate to find nearly a full team wipe. Good trigger there from Mentos.
Great read by Mentos in general. Expects them to try and go aggressive as soon as that wall drops, punishes them with a charge straight into a shatter, catches them napping, and again, what we talked about in the defense last time, just a good economic win in terms of one ultimate used, fight one. Now they've got the nano boost, they've got the blizzard, they've just dropped the infosight, they can start chaining these ultimates and just whittling away at that E7 turn.
Well, it's going to come down to the blizzard. Look at this, John Allen is waiting so patiently on this little high platform over to the right-hand side, respectively. Meanwhile, JNT, as the infosight fades away, will try to find himself a pick. Will hit a couple of shots, but he's not able to find enough damage to really make anything sizable come of it. Good wall this time through, Blizzard right on top of it. It will find all the supports in there, and they will be picked up one by one. Headshots raining in, but RC's on the point, saying we want to go, and I don't think that's going to be met with much success as a Graviton Surge will be used there, and ooh, a desperate Earthshatter being thrown out, not actually going to even find any kills, and with that comes a huge successful win, only because not only was it a team win, but they get the Earthshatter off the board from RZ.
Exactly what Havoc was talking about at halftime, that sort of throwing ultimates into lost fights. I think, again, from our sort of God perspective, just floating above, easy to see that he shouldn't shatter there. Again, not quite the awareness or communication with these teams and sort of tell him to hold it. They do have Graviton coming into this next fight here, and that's their big open.
Oh, but once again, they wall Graviton Surge. That's an Earthshatter that comes out, and JNT will make full use out of a headshot. Counter Graviton coming out with the self-destruct, but Mentos is able to track it down and put the shield up in front of it, so no success once again for E7. So we said it was all over, but the singing, and now we might be eating our words here as we are looking at a successful defense likely once again for the side of License to Tilt. The lighting's full charge. Mentos is here. They still have Basti keeping everybody alive, but they're not able to really find the kills. Finally, they find some success taking down the Brigida, but RZ wants to continue to slap on through and is able to find a lot of success, even though numbers at no point favors the side of E7. They're able to take prioritization on the targets and they're finding kills. That'll lead to the first point.
It was a really, it was like I said, a really messy one, and this is a real gut punch because with that first cap going down, now the best they can do is a draw. Obviously, it's a best of 5, so they can get the draw, win the next 2 maps, take it to a tiebreaker, but still puts them on the back foot. And the real kicker, 4 minutes back on the clock for E7.
And that is huge. You were so close to doing it. For License to Tilt, and all of that hard work might not mean much. Still staying on the mate will be John Allen, able to find a good trap there, and immediately as it goes down, the Earthshatter comes out. So again, we're seeing successful triggers from the side of License to Tilt, but even with that, Mentos and John Allen fall, so now all of a sudden, E7 is saying this is winnable, and they want to continue to move on forward. Galati is backpedaling on his heels. He's near full charge, but there's just no supports here, so all of a sudden, it's down to just 4 on 5. A Graviton Blizzard combo being used, Identity getting pushed into the wall. He did get boosted, and will stay alive throughout all of that freeze, and they don't find any kills off the back end. Mentos will throw down an Earthshatter again, and we'll find a couple of stuns, but he charges absolutely nobody, and now he's got to walk all the way back up to the point, leaving numbers in favor of E7 on the point, but Phoenix had no idea that Reinhardt was down below, and Mentos will slap through and then zone out a couple of more. It looks like it's narrow, but License to Tilt should be able to hold this if they can find the target prioritization they need. But as I say that, a Graviton Surge comes out once again. John Allen with the ice block will be able to stay up through it, and with those kills coming around the outside of the fight, it looks like it was narrow, but License to Tilt will hold.
Oh boy, it's crazy that there was literally not even a part of a tip given up in that fight. It was so crazy, it went so wrong for them off the overextend. Then they lost both supports. E7 in ramping through the gears, really starting to put that pressure on them. Then John Allen with that huge blizzard freezes everyone, and you think J&T is about to start just picking people's heads off of like the frozen bodies, but then Ziri just sacrifices himself for it, takes the brunt of it, kills him, and then you think again, E7 going to take this, but no, they keep staggering back on, they survive for Grav. A crazy fight, and the best part about winning that fight for License to Tilt, it took 2 minutes.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're looking at a very drawable situation after the end of all of that being said and done. Mentos with a fire, or pardon me, a charge, will be able to take down IMRZ once again, plus 1 more with the Brigida, so a little bit of a 2-for-1 sale happening over on the right-hand side, prospectively for the attack. And now with that, extra time being taken away, and J&T able to find a little bit of a staggered kill in the Phoenix as well.
This is suddenly going so well for License to Tilt. They've got the ultimates, minute and a half left on the clock. They're in a good position. They've got that Widowmaker threat. And again, no switches coming out from E7. And we're getting to that kind of dangerous zone where if you make a switch, you kind of need to have already made it now or be making it right now. They're going to stick on the same composition and instead change the route they're going to take to the point here.
And it's going to be right down Main Street, which will prove nicely for John Allen as he walls off a couple, forcing them onto the low ground. The Blizzard also being used right in response. J&T with the first pick of the fight, leaving numbers, and that second one as well. It's a 5-on-4 on point, favoring License to Tilt, looking for one more shot. J&T is absolutely free up on the high ground. A sound barrier being used, which will make things a little bit more difficult to start chewing through. But John Allen again with the freeze, this time onto RZ, will make him punish. Identity trying to do what he can with the Lucio, but it's not going to result in much. And now we're down to just 40 seconds, and Ziri will likely be staggered, and it will actually just go straight to the point. I don't know if I like the call. We will be boosted. No, he gets steamed back. No, I feel so bad. That's the worst case scenario for E7. It was almost a heroic play, but it ends up falling futilely in front of them. And now there's just 18 seconds to make this happen. 65.
They panicked. Now Bazara is getting walled off. Dogsy in loads of trouble. It's all starting to fall apart for E7. They're going to get grabbed for this next fight. 6 seconds left. They're not going to get a chance to reset, but no follow-up on the ground. Instead, they're going to take a more standard fight, but still, Hanzo up on the high ground. J&T just laying down this free damage again.
And now, but with kills onto the supports, there's an opportunity for E7 as long as they can find a way to take care of J&T, because like you mentioned, he is absolutely free with these arrows. And now, onto the point, they need to stay here. Do decide if not the License to Tilt. Pardon me, and Mentos will find an Earthshadow, but he was low on HP. Venom will be down here, but again, it's just supports left. The mecha's coming back for Delati, but it looks like it's all going wrong. You mentioned it, the Graviton Surge was used, but there is no follow-up, and with that come numbers for E7 funneling forward. They just need to finish off the last couple. Again, all they need is one pick. There's still some time to get there, but everyone's coming into that conga line, and E7 will find it. Holy smokes, that was insane.
So close. So close. You have to look at that Grav, that Delati hit, and you have to just wonder what happens if they sort of double down and go all in on that Grav and start swinging. Maybe they can't find the kills, but they walled off a couple of players, and you have to feel they can at least turn kills or put significant damage onto them here. But they did so well just for it to fall apart.
Ugh. I'm winded. There was a roller coaster of emotions right there on multiple sides, and at the end of the day, Hanamura will go in favor of E7, which will give them the 3-0 map lead, making their way through License to Tilt. They have their own permission, and now they have ours to tilt a little bit further.
E7 improving week by week. They lost their round 1-3. They lost round 2, 2-3. Now they've rolled it all the way back. Win their first game in Group B, Group A. Get their first win on the board, and it's all to play for, really. All the teams are fairly even. They've still got a great chance to make the top 4, get into that playoff position, and they do look pretty good. You look at players like Not an Esport hitting a lot of stuff. You look at Dogsy, pretty solid all round. And Zuri, maybe a few question marks. Maybe he could have pressured J&T a bit earlier on that last point when he was the Diva. But still, all round, pretty solid.
Pretty solid all the way through. Let's bring back our favorite soldier, Mr. Green Havoc. What'd you have to think about that one?
So I always find it interesting when teams fail to hold the objective in the final 30 seconds or so. It reminds me of the London Spitfire in the Overwatch League, how the game never starts till the music plays, is basically the motto they played by. And I think it comes down to that coordination and communication that you guys were talking about during the map, just not quite feeling each other as a team and getting more than just individual value. We saw JNT popping, but just not enough follow-up with like the Gravs and whatnot that you were just talking about. As far as this game goes, though, Commander, who would you say was a player that improved the most over the match?
Improved the most. I think J&T was definitely coming alive through different parts of it. Mentos looked impressive as well, but I think Delati made a lot of intelligent plays. When they were struggling to get through that choke point on Hanamura, he was the Diva who took the initiative, went in front, based out of the wall. A lot of smart grabs from him. Not the same follow-up, so obviously it's impossible to know exactly where the communication fault lies there, just from the spectator position. But I think Delati made a lot of intelligent plays. You saw him adapting, changing what he was doing. And the thing that really stood out is the plays he was making were adjustments to what the enemy were doing. And that's what I think stood out the most for me.
Very true. He did a good job about making sure that even if it was a personal and individual play, it would affect the team in a very straightforward way, especially that Diva bomb to help secure their attack on A. That was perfectly placed, and it was a good use of Diva tech, knowing how the roofs would work to make the bomb a little less predictable. I hold shift. For you, who would you say was the most improved player over the matches?
You know, we didn't call their names much, but the support duo of Phoenix and Identity really held their own throughout a lot of those kind of, again, chaotic fights that happened through. Yeah, there were a couple of things that were like, this was strange, but a couple of clutch sound barriers came out from Identity's standpoint. Phoenix was playing really well throughout all this tournament, this day at least on the Ana. So I really liked watching the support gameplay, even though we don't call their names much. It's one of those things that if we're not calling your name as a support player, you're doing it right. It's one of those things that you only are really getting the notice you need when you're not getting called. So I really enjoyed watching both of those double supports playing throughout the entirety of this match as well. I think they really kind of shined in a lot of those, again, delayed engagements.
I think that's a great point, and I agree with the Ana play. We didn't see a lot of huge sleep darts or bios, but they hit when they counted, especially sleep darts on the Reinhardt. It's an easier target, sure, but it's a high-value target, especially if you're doing it to stop a charge that's on one of your teammates. So, if you could play fly-on-the-wall coach, if you will, Commander, what would be an adjustment you make towards License to Tilt as they move forward in this tournament?
So I think they have a lot of good ideas. They have a lot of the right ideas, and it's the execution that really fails them a lot of the time. So I think for me, it would be sort of a dialing back and a focusing on that during their practice, making sure they nailed those combos, making sure the concentration's always on, because it seemed like when it was going right, it looked flawless and they looked like the better team. But there was too many times where just mistakes crept into their play and then it all fell apart. And again, maybe the grabs are probably a good example of that with the lack of follow-up we saw.
All right, I hold shift. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I would not have coined it any better than that. I mean, there were so many moments where the execution was clear of what they wanted to do, but they missed out on the kind of following up part of things. Flat out is what it came down to. So, I mean, if they were to really, go back and watch, I think that the moments that were kind of obvious will be like, all right, well, shoot, we should have made sure we did this. They're going to be really clear, I think. And to be honest, I think a lot of players that are going through this SR would take a lot away from these games, as far as like, well, I'm playing so well, I'm hitting these graviton surges. Why are we not being able to follow up? And I think being able to see it from a different perspective when someone else does it would really help players reflect and kind of see, oh, well, it was because of this. Maybe I could have waited a little bit longer. Maybe I should be using my graviton surge in the secondary part of the fight, not necessarily as an opener. Maybe I need to be waiting to do it at a different point in time, depending on who else has their ultimate available. It's not just simple things like boosted blades and dragons and graviton surges together. There are other ways to use these kind of combinations to help give you the maximum potential to win a team fight. And I think that when you go back, you watch these things from our perspective, you'll start to see like, oh, well, this was a feels bad moment. We tried to make a heroic play happen 6v4. Obviously, it didn't go well. We need to make sure we're being more self-disciplined as well as being a little bit more coordinated on a full six-man front.
All right,
I agree. I just want to add, sort of in that same thing, is this is just speculation, but it seems a little bit like communication error, not necessarily from any individual, but what a lot of players struggle with at most levels is the sort of the setup time to your calls or like future tensing stuff. So I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, and even just that extra second and a half, 2 seconds gives everyone on time to set themselves up better for it. And I think little things like that just can make dramatic shifts in how your team works and operates as a unit.
It's so true. Just like mechanical input in plays can have a different effect between personal value and team value, that same thing is true with communication. Making sure what you're communicating is useful to your team, so that way your comms are clear, your objective is in front of you, and you're moving forward as a unit. So before we go into one of the more fun questions of any cast, I want to ask, is there any final thoughts that you had to put on this game, either one of you?
You've opened your mouth like you're gonna say something, Shift. That's like the cue to talk.
I'm just like trying to put the words together because like I want to talk about the game, but I gotta know how much Blizzard merchandise is in your house, Green Havoc. I gotta know.
There is definitely a decent amount. There's posters everywhere, Frostmourn's on the wall.
Love it.
It's a fun experience.
That was my whole takeaway. Really, got to that's what I needed.
I think for me, I want to give props to John Allen because I think me and Shiv both came in, we're ready to roast, and he didn't give us a whole lot to roast. So props to John Allen for holding his own.
Very true. So, who was the big splash player? Who was the MVP of the match? Now, all of these players are learning and improving, but one had to stand above the rest. So, not most improved, but who was the most important? We'll start with you. I hold shift.
Man, it's tough. I kind of am tilting towards not an esport simply because he was able to match up with the Widow v Widow gameplay, but also had a number of really clutch plays when he switched to things like the Pegida. I'm gonna go with not an esport, I think, this time through.
All right, I think that's fair. He definitely showed solid accuracy when you needed it, and he didn't even have a tactical visor. What about you, Commander?
Part of me wants to lean towards Mentos because I think in terms of the tank battle, that seemed to be the biggest difference for me in terms of like individual matchups. I think Mentos was significantly better than IMRZ in this game, but I think I maybe want to turn the attention towards Phoenix because I think he did a particularly good job. His rotations were really good, and I think he did a great job just supporting his team and keeping them alive, and again, being the difference maker for his team.
Very good, very good. For me, I think it's ultimately torn between a few players, but I have to agree with I hold shift here. I think the difference came from just the flexibility of the DPS and understanding really how to operate with the Orisa that like we saw in Junkertown, getting value, even like you said, Commander, where they shouldn't have been allowed to get value. So I think it was well played. Anyway, a huge shout out to my two double duty pulling caster slash analysts, I Hold Shift and Commander X. They did a great job about breaking this game down and making sure that information was available for these teams to learn. I've been your host, Green Havoc or 76. And if you're an NA player, make sure to check out Jane's subreddit, Elo Hell, or the Elo Tournament one, Elo Hell Tournaments, to sign up for the NAGG Season 1. There's some new rules, so make sure to read up on all of that. I hope to see many more players improving their games as more of these tournaments get hosted. There will be another game tomorrow for the EU at 1 p.m. CEST. I hope to see you all there. I personally will be flying across the US during this, so I will just be watching when I can sporadically. To anyone else that watched this cast, thank you for joining us. I hope you learned something to the teams. Thank you for playing. And our producer, I apologize, I can't read your name in the mask. And as far as that goes, until the next cast, we'll see you on the ladder.